The most famous address in America, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, is also perhaps the country's most famous haunted house. Presidents, first ladies, White House staff members, and guests have reported feeling ghostly presences, hearing unexplained noises, and even running into actual apparitions, literally on the way out of the bathtub in one particularly famous case. Abigail Adams and her husband John, the second president of the United States, moved to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue from the former U.S. Capitol in Philadelphia. At the time, Washington, D.C. was still just a town, built mostly on swampy land on the banks of the Potomac River. Because the east room of the new White House was the warmest and driest, Abigail used it to hang the wash. Her ghost, clad in a cap and lace shawl, has reportedly been seen heading towards the east room, arms outstretched as if carrying laundry. A lesser known early White House personality who has been said to haunt its halls was David Burns, who sold the government most of the land on which the city of Washington, including the presidential residence, was built. Lillian Rogers Parks, a seamstress who chronicled her 30-year career working at the White House in a 1961 memoir, told the story of a valet to President Franklin D. Roosevelt who reportedly heard a disembodied voice coming from the distance in the yellow, oval room, saying, quote, "I'm Mr. Burns," end quote. During Harry S. Truman's administration, a guard heard a similar voice. Thinking it was then Secretary of State James Burns, he went looking for him only to learn that the secretary hadn't been at the White House that day. In 1824, Andrew Old Hickory Jackson was defeated by John Quincy Adams in one of the most contentious presidential elections in history. Elected president 4 years later, the Shirley Jackson continued to hold grudges against those who had supported his opponent. In the early 1860s, First Lady Mary Todd Lincoln, who believed strongly in the occult and reportedly held seances in the White House to commune with the spirits of her dead sons, told friends she had heard Jackson stomping and swearing through the halls of the presidential residence. The Rose Room, Jackson's bedchamber while he was president, is believed by some to be one of the most haunted rooms in the White House. Jackson's ghostly presence also showed up in the White House correspondence of Harry Truman, America's 33rd president. In June 1945, just 2 months into his first term, Truman wrote to his wife Bess of the spooky quality of his new residence. Quote, "I sit here in this old house and work on foreign affairs, read reports, and work on speeches, all the while listening to the ghosts walk up and down the hallway and even right in here in the study. The floors pop and the drapes move back and forth. I can just imagine old Andy Jackson and Teddy Roosevelt having an argument over Franklin Roosevelt," end quote. Another interesting character that is said to haunt the White House is a woman named Anna Surratt. According to lore, the daughter of Mary Surratt can be heard frantically knocking on the front door of the White House, pleading for President Andrew Johnson to spare her mother's life before she was executed for conspiring to kill Lincoln. After her mother's conviction, Anna Surratt did petition for her mother's life. She traveled to the White House to meet with President Johnson but was denied entrance. The lack of clarity about Mary Surratt's role in the assassination undoubtedly led to the prevalence of this ghostly tale featuring her daughter's continued and unresolved suffering. President George W. Bush's daughters, Jenna and Barbara, heard opera singing and 1920s piano music coming out of a fireplace in their bedroom. Ironically, President Harry Truman once joked, quote, "My choice early in life was either to be a piano player in a whorehouse or a politician, and to tell you the truth, there's hardly any difference," end quote. Was it Truman's piano that the Bush twins Barbara and Jenna heard in their room after their father George W. Bush took office? By far, the most frequently reported sighting in the White House over the years has been the ghost, or at least the presence, of the celebrated 16th President Abraham Lincoln, whose life was cut tragically short by an assassin's bullet in April 1865. Grace Coolidge, wife of President Calvin Coolidge, was the first person to say she had actually seen Lincoln's ghost. According to her, the lanky former president was standing looking out a window of the Oval Office across the Potomac to the former Civil War battlefields beyond. Mrs. Johnson, wife of President Lyndon Johnson, reportedly felt Lincoln's presence one night while watching a television program about his death. Most notably, sightings of Lincoln's ghost were frequently reported during the long administration of Franklin D. Roosevelt, who also presided over this country during a time of great upheaval. First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt used the Lincoln bedroom as her study, and she said she would feel his presence when she worked there late at night. During her visit to the White House, Queen Wilhelmina of the Netherlands heard a knock on her bedroom door in the night. When she answered it, she reportedly saw Lincoln's ghost wearing his top hat, and she fainted right away. British Prime Minister Winston Churchill, who visited the White House more than once during World War II, told a story of emerging naked from his evening bath, smoking his customary cigar, only to find a ghostly Lincoln sitting by the fireplace in his room. When Lillian Rogers Parks, the seamstress, once investigated the sound of someone pacing an upper level of the White House, another staff member told her the room in question had been unoccupied and, quote, "that was old Abe pacing the floor," end quote. President Ronald Reagan's dog, Rex, is believed to have seen Lincoln's ghost as well. Apparently, the dog would regularly stand at the door to the Lincoln bedroom and bark, and the president believed Rex could see Lincoln. There have also been reported sightings of the ghost of Abraham Lincoln's son Willie, who died when he was 12 years old of typhoid fever. He was seen in the White House by staff members of the Grant administration in the 1870s. Psychics have speculated that President Lincoln's spirit remains in the White House to be on hand in times of crisis, as well as to complete the difficult work that his untimely death left unfinished. Is the White House haunted? Well, what is needed for a haunting? An old structure, perhaps? Considering the White House was completed on November 1st, 1800, I'd say it's pretty old. Okay, how about a place where death has occurred? That's a popular theme in horror movies. Well, it is a historic fact that a few people have died in the White House, 10 to be exact, and 2 on that list were presidents, William Henry Harrison and Zachary Taylor. The list also includes 3 first ladies and 1 first child, Willie Lincoln, who died at the tender age of 12. I don't know about you, but I automatically think of the 2 girls from the movie The Shining. I can't say with 100% certainty that the White House is haunted because I have never been there personally. What I can say is that the White House is rich with history, some of it hidden forever in the sands of time. So who knows? Maybe the White House is haunted.